Chair now recognizes Mr. Hill.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, panel, for being with us today. Thank you for both our chairmen of our subcommittees for holding this important hearing. I'm grateful to you, and what a disgrace UNRWA has become. You know, I was thinking about the whole world that the UN attempts to provide care and service to. You know, think about it. It's a massive task. And yet UNRWA has a budget of about almost $1 billion, employs 30,000 people, 13,000 of which I think are in Gaza, or were. And then the Commission on Refugees, taking care of the whole rest of the world, has a budget of $10 billion and just 18,000 employees. Let that sink in. Mr. Goldberg, you know, what's wrong with this picture? Could the UN Commissioner on Refugees handle this work and just abandon, since all the countries are disgusted with that $806 million or close to $1 billion with UNRWA, why didn't this just get transferred to the UN Commission on Refugees? Let's pick a handful out of the 13,000 that are effective. What do you think?
That has been the obvious solution for decades, but for the United Nations inherent systemic structural bias against Israel, support for UNRWA's mission of trying to instigate incitement against Israel. That is the only reason it hasn't happened.
So you're charging that the UN itself is the most anti-Semitic organization on the planet? Is that what you're saying?
Well, 100% correct.
Yeah.
Documented by UN Watch and others. But I would say, Ms. Rudman said something before, and it's very, very much a flag. Don't go to ask UN High Commissioner of Refugees, is it okay? Would you like to do this? The UN Secretary General is already circling the wagons to defend UNRWA. If you ask the UN, what do you think? The UN, we know what they think. They hate Israel. We tell them what to do. Our taxpayer dollars lead the way, not the other way around.
Thank you. And I thank you for that. I want to shift to Mr. Schiff. Thank you for testifying.
Thank you, sir.
I've spent a lot of time looking at curriculum, education curriculum, most of the time in Egypt. I'll say that's an area that I've spent quite a bit of time. And you see, you've reported in your testimony some successful curriculum changes in the UAE, Saudi Arabia, Morocco. Mr. Moran was just talking about this. And, you know, even though the Commission on Religious Freedom has done a particular study on the Egyptian education system, still we struggle with proper terminology and proper framing for Christianity and the Coptic Church, for example, in Egypt. How did you find the countries that have broken the code and found success? What was the key point on that you would share?
A really good question, sir, and I'll try and answer it very, very briefly because it's such a big subject. If I could, though, just refer back to the point you made before. UNRWA is, frankly, not even good at this distribution job. Last Saturday, they actually asked that there would be a stoppage of trucks going through Kerem Shalom because they couldn't cope with the volume. So let us not think that this is actually their area of expertise. It really isn't. In relation to curricula, countries change their curricula for their own reasons, not to make the United States or anybody else proud of them or happy for them, but because they want to create societies of the future which make sense to them. You know, for MBS, it is about Vision 2030. It is about a Saudi Arabia that is more open, that is able to trade with the world, that is less dependent on oil and gas. And there's no question that a curriculum which prepares young people in a tolerant, open, peaceful way will go a long way to a country which in 2030 will be more able to do that. The UAE, Mohammed bin Zayed, made exactly that determination in 2011 and drove a quite remarkable change because that is the UAE he wanted to see. And anybody who spent time in Dubai, in any other part of the UAE, can see how successful that has been. Egypt.
Well, I would hope then that leaders in those countries would help lead the change in these more reluctant countries, including, let me say, I've a proud supporter of Christian education in the West Bank through the Catholic Church, and yet history starts at 600 AD, and I'm not sure that's the right way to teach history, so let me yield back. Thank you.
Yeah.